start, Joanne.
Okay, just give me one moment. Go ahead when you're ready.
I'd like to call this meeting to order at 10:01 a.m. And adoption of the agenda, that the Town and Gown Committee adopt the agenda as presented for today's meeting. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Are there adoption of the minutes? That the minutes from the following meeting be approved, January 24th, 2022. Are there any errors or omissions? Go ahead, Paul. You're muted, Paul. Paul, you're muted.
In section 6C, in reference to Niagara College, I see the enrollment shown at 88,000. I'm just wondering if that was a typo. 88,000 sounds like a little high.
Just a wee bit, 8,800.
Yeah.
8,800, Leanne. Good thing you're there to tell us it's not 88,000.
My apologies, I'll correct that.
Okay. And
Okay.
secondly, in section 7, in regards to comments I made, it's showing whole committee. And I was referencing the sidewalk, the snow removal on sidewalks for the whole community.
Whole community. And Joanne, you've captured those two changes?
Yes, I have.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
Okay, all those in favor?
We just need a mover and a seconder.
Oh, I need a mover and sorry about that. I need a mover and a seconder. I got a mover. Paul, you gonna move that?
Yeah, I'll move it. I saw Brad was moving it, so.
And Brad's gonna second it, okay? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll move on to committee business. And up first, we have St. Patrick's Day debrief. And Brad, I'll start with you.
Sure, thanks, Terry. Well, again, it's always something that we spend time preparing for, and this year, even I think more than past years, very thankful for our various community partners for all of the important work that was done to prepare for St. Patrick's Day this year. I think different than past years, there was significant leadership provided, in this case by the City of St. Catharines through their emergency preparedness unit to coordinate all the various community partners, whether those be from the cities, fire service, police service, and so on. Certainly over the course of 2022, beginning almost late January, there was a series of meetings with all the various partners to ensure that we were well positioned and prepared for whatever may come. Again, after 2 years of pandemic and with significant changes in the provincial COVID strategy, mitigation strategy, just prior to St. Patrick's Day at the beginning of March, we were unsure what that would translate to. As well, we were hearing energy around both March 17th as well as March 19th, the Thursday and the Saturday, and then further both in the City of St. Catharines and the City of Thorold. So again, I think that community coordination was important. It meant that we were well positioned to respond to what we were seeing in the various communities on both days. And again, from the university's perspective, sincere thanks to our partners for all of the work that they did alongside our team to ensure that any issues were addressed well. Happy to certainly receive any comments or questions, but from my perspective, it was, I think, a good set of days all around. The committee will remember that the 17th of March was as beautiful as it is today, 20+ degrees and all sorts of reasons to think that there could be significant gatherings. But speaking specifically to the city of Thorold, we really did not see very much on the 17th, nor on the 19th. So again, more work to do as always, but quite happy with the way that the partnerships work this year. And I think that framework is going to serve us well going forward for other potential significant gatherings, for example, homecoming or Halloween, where we've seen those types of challenges in the past. So that's probably the comments I would make at this point, Ted.
Okay. Sean's not here today. I'll just for the groups. Sean Dowd has been sitting on this committee or sending a representative. Good news and bad news. I mean, good news for him. He's retiring at the end of this week. So May 1st, he'll be heading into retirement. But I can tell you, Sean's been a great community partner. He's worked extremely hard on our concerns. But I know talking to Chief McCullough, he said we'll be extremely happy with his replacement. And I'll hope that we can get him out at our next meeting. But for Sean, I wish he was here because I want to wish him all the best in his retirement. He was a great asset to this group. So, has anyone got questions for Brad? Go ahead, Stephanie.
Hi, everyone. So I'm a resident in the Winterberry Hawthorne area, and the St. Patrick's Day, it was manageable in our area. But I mean, we're just also having just to be more patient because we don't really have a choice. But I did notice that the weekend following St. Patrick's Day, that near the Penn Center, there was a lot of St. Patrick's parties with a lot of young adults. And I remember reading something that the area actually got shut down by the NRP. I remember driving in the area and you just saw young adults flooded everywhere. So a concern that I've always had with even what's going on with the parties in my area is I don't want to get it under control in my area and it moved to somewhere else. And we're already seeing that that's what's happening, in my opinion. So the students, young adults are predicting, oh, it's going to be controlled and managed in the Juneberry area, let's not go there. And now it already moved on to another area is my concern.
Well, I can address that, Stephanie. Traditionally, and this has been for years, so this is not new this year, and Brad can speak to that after. Jacobson's always traditionally been the party for St. Patrick's Day, and it's been for years. This just didn't happen this year. Traditionally in Thorold, we seem to have more issues on homecoming. St. Catherine seems to have more issues on St. Patrick's Day. So it basically just followed what we expected and what's transpired in the past. Brad, do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, just to speak to the Jacobson area as a historic hotspot around St. Patrick's Day. From 2017 onwards, we've seen significant gatherings, probably peaking at about 4,000 students 2017, and this past year, as we understand it, somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 students gathered at the peak. My sense from talking with the various community partners, including the NIPS, is that the crowd was, although large, very, very well managed and well behaved. They were respectful to any first responders, police or otherwise, who asked them to make adjustments, and by late afternoon, very early evening, the crowd had dispersed. So again, we think that those types of gatherings in residential neighborhoods are not the ideal location. We would much prefer to continue to work to disperse those types of gatherings to downtown establishments or even campus events as it comes to be. But that's not traditionally the way that those gatherings have occurred in Niagara or anywhere else kind of near campus communities in Ontario. So Stephanie, comments well received, and recognize that the idea of gatherings moving from one location to another is something that we need to be sensitive to. In this case, that was a significant area of focus for that planning committee, and we were prepared to respond wherever the gathering occurred. Again, also over the course of 2 different days, based on what we were hearing from potential parties.
Thank you. Jason's on. Jason, I just wondered, we're just talking about feedback from St. Patty's Day from our Thorold bylaw perspective. Could you give us a recap on from the Thorold perspective?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would really just echo everything that Brad has said. This year was probably one of the best years as far as preparation is concerned. All the stakeholders got together on a regular weekly basis in preparation. As we've seen over the past years, as you had alluded to, Mr. Mayor, that we didn't see a significant uptake in parties in the Thorold area. It was primarily in St. Catharines on Jacobson, as we've seen in the past. There were some smaller gatherings in Thorold, but nothing that wasn't manageable. And bylaw was out there the next day to address any cleanup issues that needed to be addressed as a result of those parties. But overall, it was not a bad event from what I understand in Thorold or St. Catharines. They're both manageable.
Thank you, Jason. Leanne, did you want to comment anything from Niagara College perspective?
Well, I just want to reiterate what both Brad and Jason have said. One of the best planned, I think, in terms of mediating any type of risk. It was really well organized. We met numerous times to consider the neighbors in both of those areas, and we thought overall it went well. Given that what we know that happens in other communities, I think we're very fortunate. We were receiving hourly, if not every half hour sometimes, updates from people on the scenes, on the grounds. And I know that, Brad, you and your team were out there cleaning up the next day with the students. You had good responses from the neighbors. And I thought that it was good overall, given what could have happened, that it had been contained and could have been much worse.
Thank you, Leanne. And one thing that I can mention that's helped, I've noticed significantly, is with the easing of restrictions and the bars running at capacity, there's other avenues and other places for the students to go to now. Just in the city of Thorold, I know the Moose and Goose ran events on 17th, 18th, and 19th. And they were full for all 3 events. So I know that just having those type of venues open again has been a big help, because when those events were not open, those parties shifted into neighborhoods. There's no question about it. So I think that's been another positive aspect. And moving forward, we hope that we're able to stay in an area where we're still able to maintain that and we don't move backwards regarding the pandemic. So is there anyone else on the St. Patty's Day before I move on to Town and Gown conference? Brad, you want to, you put this on here, and this is an annual conference Brad will speak to. We hosted it here before the pandemic. Brock was the host, and so if you want to, and Brad sits on the provincial committee as well. So go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. I just wanted to make sure that our group was aware and familiar of the return of this conference to the annual calendar. As Terry mentioned, the Town and Gown Association of Ontario is a long-standing provincial committee. Both the city of Thorold and the university were among the leading founders of that group back in 2003 or 4, and have been active ever since. This year, the annual conference is being hosted by the city of London and Western University. And is going to be both in person and virtual, depending on the kind of the comfort and ability of the various participants. Thank you to the clerk for including the link to the conference in the committee's agenda. But what I would say about not just the Town of Gannett Association of Ontario, but also this particular conference is a good opportunity to connect with comparable stakeholders from near campus communities across Ontario. Generally is kind of a positive orientation, looking for solutions that would apply to the various challenges we encounter, but recognizing that there are similarities that we can learn from across the province, and very much focused on dialogue. So a good opportunity to connect with, again, with our peers and colleagues across the province. This year, of course, we are needing to navigate that distinction between an in-person and a virtual event. So we're again trying to strike that balance. But very happy so far with the degree of interest we've seen from various near campus communities and stakeholders across the province, and looking forward to welcoming people both to London, but also to the conference virtually from June 9th to 10th, 2022. Very happy to answer any questions that the committee might have, and thankful to the City of Thorold for their ongoing and membership to the Town of Gannett Association of Ontario.
Yeah, Brad, it's always been great to be involved, and we get some good literatures from that as well. And I've been fortunate enough to be a panel member on a couple of the Town and Gown round tables, and it's great to hear that issues that are out there aren't unique to us. I mean, they're happening across the province, and by everybody working together and working to find solutions, I think when you pick each other's brains, you can always make improvements and get better. So, any questions? Okay, I'm going to move on to year-end review. I put this on there because I just wanted to highlight where we are now from where we started. And at the beginning, we had a lot of issues in the fall, especially in the Winterberry, Juneberry area. With a lot of the restrictions that were in place, our normal homecoming and time was eventful, to say the least. And it was only through a collective effort from the residents, our community partners, and weekly meetings and regrouping and coming up. And, when they say pivot during the pandemic, well, we were pivoting on a weekly basis to address the issues in that area. And believe me, the hours of work that went in there and the collaboration and the partnerships really did help. But it was a slow turnaround, but it really did help. And it shows that effectively we can make things better. But it doesn't mean that we can take our foot off the gas pedal, because I know that this is something we continually have to work on. And and I know, and Brad, every year there's a lot of different people, because some students leave, new students come in, and we start the process all over again. So I just open the floor for anyone else that wants to make comments on that. I just wanted to highlight that, the efforts, and this committee is a big part of that. So I just want you to know that. Okay, preparation for the fall, because that's always our big time, and we know the fall is a time when we have to put our best foot forward. So we will be preparing from now to the fall, and then we really get going. I just want to make a note. I can mention this now, that I put our next meeting at August 22nd, which is prior to move-in, so that we can get our make sure that we have everything in place. So August 22nd, 10 a.m., it's a Monday, will be our kickoff meeting for that. But we will continue to work between now and then with our subcommittee groups. And if we have any issues, by all means, we'll be addressing them. It doesn't mean that that we shut down for the summer, because that's never what we do. So, but the kickoff, to be prepared for what we know is our busiest time, will be August 22nd. So I'll again turn this over to Brad and Leanne if you want to talk about preparation as we get ready for the fall and what things are looking like as far as enrollment at Brock and Niagara. Go ahead, Brad.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As far as enrollment goes, we're in the kind of in the midst of that now. We expect that our enrollment numbers will be very good come September, as they've been in recent years. Accordingly, we know that we'll need to be well positioned to help our new students transition to Brock and to Niagara. We have a campus-wide orientation planning committee that begins its work in early May, and that planning process continues through the summer months towards the first weeks of September. For the last 2 years, we've been very focused on both in-person and virtual activities. I would expect that needle will shift further for 2022 September towards much more in-person activities. If things continue on the trajectory we're seeing now, that's certainly our hope. And at the same time, we know that both orienting students to campus, but also to our surrounding communities is important. I might ask if, and perhaps this is the section on the agenda that will fit, but in 2019, we had a series of successful community events that welcomed students back to Niagara, but also provided opportunities for students and residents to gather together and get to know one another. And I think about the excellent event that the city of Thorold, along with the BIA, did on the kind of one of the early weekends in September. I think that would be great to plan towards again. I know the university would have a strong interest in that, and I expect that our students union would as well. So again, I think we'll have lots of time in the coming months to put something together that would be exceptional. And maybe I'll just
Councillor Sentence, Brad, I got Councillor Sentence here. Councillor Sentence sits on the BIA. Could you, Councillor Sentence, could you bring that up at your next meeting about what interest the BIA would have going back to hosting an event on Front Street like they did back before the pandemic?
Absolutely. We meet this week. Paul and I'll probably be there.
Thank you. Because we're doing a lot, Brad, to really energize the downtown. Starting on May 5th, you're going to see every Friday night there's going to be a car show downtown. We have events. We have a 2-day Canada Day weekend celebration planned. The regular Canada Day family celebration with music and then fireworks. And then we're doing a second day of music festival, and this is all free. It's going to be free to the community. And then for the 13 by 13 during the Canada Games on Tuesday, August 9th, we will be hosting a big event in the park as well with our partner. We're partnered with the province of Manitoba, and we will be holding a big event on that night, and we're bringing a headliner act in from Winnipeg that will be playing that evening. So we really are trying to utilize our revitalized park and downtown, and you'll see more events coming as well. So
thank you for that, Mr. That's excellent news to hear, and certainly looking forward to spending time this summer in downtown Thorold. I'll just close by saying that all of our various good neighbor activities that we would align with the start of term are certainly on the list to continue for next year, and I'll be looking for support from this group to make sure that those are effective. But again, we're looking forward to September 2022 and to seeing lots of different ways that our students can be positive members in the Thorold community.
And Leanne, did you want to speak from Niagara College aspect?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we're just wrapping up the winter term. Exams are done and grades are due this Wednesday. And so we're looking at right now getting our orientation events out of the way for the spring and summer term. And that will be very soon. And then once that's done, planning will commence for our fall orientation. And we typically partner with NC SAC and with our international departments to look at orientation events. Like Brock, we do anticipate that we're going to have a lot more on-campus events as we have compared to the last couple of years, obviously. So we're excited about getting that going. And I'll continue to update as plans start to firm up a bit.
Thank you. Kaylee, did you want to comment?
I don't have a ton of updates yet. I know that our events team is already starting to put together some plans for September and throwing around some ideas. So we're certainly looking forward to September and a more traditionally in-person orientation week. So we'll be working with Brad, and of course we want to have some community events in there as well too. We'll do our vendor fair, so there's an opportunity for community partners to come on campus, but of course it's nice to get the students out in the community too, and we're open to collaborating on any event for that.
Thank you, Kaylee. Jason, do you want to speak to the pilot project that's going to start in September as far as the parking?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in an effort, parking enforcement is usually fairly quiet in the city of Thorold over the summer months, but definitely ramps back up in September. So council did approve for the city of Thorold to hire a parking enforcement officer starting in September. So that will be a 6-month pilot project where we'll have a dedicated individual working on parking enforcement solely. Hopefully that will be a success with the possibility of becoming a permanent fixture in the city, but time will tell. One other thing I'd like to add, I don't know, Mr. Mayor, if you were going to mention it at all, but another really exciting opportunity that we're having here at the city of Thorold is in the next couple of weeks. I can't remember the exact date, but within the next 2 or 3 weeks, the city of Thorold is going to be having our very first communications officer within the city. First time ever for the city of Thorold. And so that person will be, I believe they're more of a community engagement individual with communications as a large part of that. So hopefully you'll be able to see a lot more positive messaging coming from the city, a lot more updates as far as city initiatives. And yeah, we're excited to see what can come from this.
Thank you, Jason. Stephanie, go ahead. You had a question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I have a question about the parking enforcement. So I'm to assume that parking enforcement means to enforce parking and tickets and stuff like that. But my concern is, especially in my area, I went and did the math. I went door to door and I found out how many cars were in each house, how many people lived in each house. And we're actually short 2/3 of the amount of parking in this area. There's 4 to 6 vehicles per student unit, and there's 6 students in every unit. So when I broke it all down, we're short 2/3 of the amount of parking. Now that's not really the students' fault that they were put in an area where there isn't enough parking. That I don't think that the only answer to the problem is enforcement. There needs to be provision. There just isn't enough parking spots. If you're going to build this kind of area, which I wasn't aware of when I moved here, but the fact is it has become a student housing area. It is not their fault that there isn't parking. And some of them, the houses, if there's 2 parking spots in the driveway, some of them, there's like a cutout of grass about 2 feet in the second spot. So their rear tire hits the grass and they're getting ticketed by bylaw, but they're in their driveway. There just really needs to be provision. I need to grab a charger, so I'll be walking away for a moment.
Yeah, Jason, you want to comment on that because you're doing a audit now, am I correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the city of Thorold, I'm involved, I'm not the only one involved, but is doing a comprehensive review of items that we could try to implement to mitigate some of the ongoing concerns that we have in high student populated areas, parking being a large one of those items or issues, but not the only one. We are hoping to bring forward some recommendations, probably, I would say at the latest beginning of next term of council. There's a lot involved. It's a very complicated issue, but we are definitely working on it to try and, not that we can solve everything, but we're definitely coming up with some solutions to try and mitigate some of the issues.
Thank you, Jason. And I can say that Jason's group's being very proactive in dealing with this, and he's right. It's not an easy issue, but the background work is being done. Thank you, Jason. Is there any further questions regarding that? Go ahead, Brad.
Yes, thank you. Just to kind of return to the idea of public transportation as an important alternative to vehicular traffic, and certainly, I think a potential solution to some of the overparking that we're seeing in Thorold. Happy to work with the city or others to better understand the parking dynamics that might involve Brock students, but don't want to lose track of the kind of longer term and environmental advantages to public transit as a preferred way back and forth.
Thank you, Brad. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, thank you for that, Brad. It's really appreciated. And I don't want to, or nor can I really speak to some of the ideas that we have thought of thus far, really, because nothing is in concrete right now, but additional public transit is definitely something that's being considered. And I think it would be a great opportunity or a great idea for us to engage with both Niagara College and Brock University on this endeavor as well, prior to us proposing solutions or recommendations, I guess, to council.
Thank you. And one thing with the starting in January of next year, the transition to regional transit will be happening. It's going to take about 2 years to be fully implemented, but the actual transition starts of January next year. And one of the things with that is going to be the ability for people to transition throughout Niagara much more seamlessly. And so you'll be able to, from a student perspective, you'll be able to transition to the university and college much more, much easier than you are today, which might allow people to live in, in a more expanded area or commute from where they live within Niagara. As well, the expansion to the Foundry Lofts has started, so that is three. They're going to start with 3 units and then the actual plan is 6, with over 1,000 beds by the time it's completed, which will be a positive factor. And it's good to see that they are in the ground again after the pandemic. And how many units are in the new residence at Brock, Brad?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. So again, capacity is around 300 or so, and we are aiming to have that building full from September forward. We did move students into Residence 8 this past January, although it's at a reduced capacity based on some of our other COVID mitigation strategies. So again, full for September and very, very strong reviews about that new residence building so far from students.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions? Go ahead, Stephanie.
Thank you so much. So Jason, I just have a question then, because you guys are trying to come up with ideas with the parking issues. So they're expanding on Winterberry with what appears to be more townhouses, which I'm assuming will probably end up being more student housing, which could come with a lot more vehicles. So I just really want you to consider what can be some kind of provision provided for all those vehicles that are in our neighborhood. Because even if you expand the transit system and stuff like that, people still might have their vehicles. They just might not use them to go to school, but they'll still be in my community. That there really needs to be some kind of provision for all these vehicles to go to, because right now there just isn't. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? And Stephanie, all those things, like if you have some points or that, and if you have any information, you can, Jason, you know Jason's email, you could send him if you have any things that he can look at incorporating or some suggestions, by all means, okay? Okay, so we're going to move on to round table, and I'll open the floor up to round table, and I'm going to start with Gary. Gary, do you have anything? I got to hear your voice today, Gary.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Long time we haven't seen anybody. I don't really have anything. And I gotta enforce what your statement was. This committee has done great job in trying to handle the audience that we're dealing with. But given that the audience is changing every year, so we're almost being pushed back to start every year. And Stephanie, I can sympathize with your condition, because the people are going to come and they're going to be rental units no matter what we do. And most of the kids are great. I got lucky. I've got 6 beside me that are really, really good. The last couple of years, I've had nothing but good things. But there's been years where I've got up 3 o'clock in the morning, banged on the door, trying to stop the music, and my windows are rattling. So I don't know if we can kind of put stuff in place to stop the big, massive parties, or at least try to control those massive parties. On holidays and homecoming and all this. It's the smaller parties that'll disrupt you more. But that being said, this committee has done a lot. Brad, is there, and I know I brought this up last meeting, is there any talk at all nationwide? Because every city that has a university or a major college like Niagara has this problem. Is there any talk anywhere in your field that has anything to do with some kind of code of conduct outside of the university? I know it's a big step, but has anybody ever talked about that? Because if there's no penalty, we can have parades, we can do all kinds of stuff. But there's going to be a certain percentage of students that are just going to rip and tear. I mean, they're 19, 18, 20, first time away from home. I was probably a little crazy, so was Terry. At that
Don't put
age.
me in your boat now.
You're from Thorold, so you had to have rough 2 years. So is there any conversation, even moderate conversation, about some kind of code of conduct? If every university does it, then it could become okay.
I think that's a question well received, Gary. Certainly, this is a continuing conversation. The university just this past fall did a comprehensive external review of our code of conduct to see the circumstances where it could be applied to off-campus matters. I think what that review reinforced is that it needs to be an intersected process with not just kind of universities mechanisms, but certainly the community mechanisms that are in place both at the municipal, provincial, and federal level. And so when you think about the enforcement framework, many of the things that we encounter and discuss around this committee are well addressed or able to be addressed through municipal bylaws or provincial offenses. And our challenge is really in how to set up an enforcement framework that draws on the tools that we have and that kind of positions the university's interventions for those circumstances that it most applies to, which is maybe just to say in closing, there are circumstances where the university would apply its code of conduct to a matter that happens off campus, but it's a very narrow definition for extreme matters. So again, part of our acknowledgement of that and the way that we look to make sure that the kind of disruption issues that we talk about in this committee frequently is by the ways that we contribute to the regional police and to kind of other enforcement agencies so that they can take the steps needed with the tools that they have, whether those be, as I said, municipal bylaws or provincial offenses. But again, there's a role for the institutions to play, and there is a discussion both at Brock and elsewhere in the province towards this issue. But again, I think the solution is actually a combination of ways that we can intervene and ways that the university can assist. So I don't know that there's a single kind of singular solution, but there's definitely a collective set of solutions, and we're part of that. Again, ongoing conversations with Jason and his team to make sure that issues that arise are addressed effectively, and certainly looking to do what the university can to address concerns. But again, from our code of conduct perspective, you'd be looking at kind of a very significant disruption, and where we can drive a connection to the university's kind of core business, specifically on campus.
Thank you. Terry, just one other thing. When's the Beaver Dam Park going to be ready?
I've been told, and I've been told it'll be ready for Canada Day weekend. So
Okay.
it should actually be ready just before then, but I would say the grand opening is going to be when we do the 2-day event on Canada Day weekend. So,
Excellent.
okay.
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. We look forward to seeing you there.
Okay.
Idolo.
Good morning.
Good morning.
At this point, I don't have too much to say other than I think the committee did a great job with the St. Patrick's Day, keeping everything intact and informing everybody along the way. So I know there was some issues out on Jacobson, but from the look of it, it was pretty minor. We had our guys out looking in Thorold and driving around, and everything was pretty respectful and calm. So kudos to everybody. Great job. Thanks.
Thank you, Idolo. Leanne, did you have anything you wanted to add in the round table?
Yeah, thank you. So as I mentioned, we were wrapping up the winter term. Our enrollment for the spring semester is over 3,000 students. We're going to have our first on-campus spring convocation in June. It will be virtual as well, though. We've also hosted our first on-campus student engagement event since COVID, which is exciting. A COVID barbecue, beach party, and dirty bingo in our pub. This past weekend, I organized a neighborhood cleanup at the neighborhood adjacent to the Daniel J. Patterson campus. I've been doing this since 2018. However, it was put on hold, obviously, for during COVID. The mayor, 5 city councilors, Rotary Club of Niagara, and the community neighbors all came out for 2 hours to pick up litter. I have a meeting today with the Welland Town and Gown. That's another town and gown that I sit on to plan a similar event for our Welland neighbors. So that's exciting to see everyone come together for a couple of hours to help each other out, and particularly being good stewards of the land. We were really excited last week to launch our new 5-year strategic plan. We're hosting a day of reflection this Friday where Niagara College gathers annually to reflect on the past year, to plan for the future, deepen our understanding of the vision for the college, and connect as a community. We'll also obviously be discussing our new strategic plan. In terms of COVID restrictions, we continue to have a revised mandatory mask policy in place until May. We will reassess the COVID situation closer to the end of the month. We've also lifted our control access at each of our entrances, as well as our vaccine mandate, although we do continue to encourage our staff, our students, our faculty, and our visitors to be vaccinated. And finally, I have announced my retirement as of August 17th.
Oh, Leanne,
Starting a new path.
congratulations. Well,
Thank you.
congratulations, and then we're sorry you're not going to be part with our group, but we do wish you all the best in your retirement.
Well, and that's very kind of you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. And I have to reiterate just the efficacy of this town and gown, and what a pleasure it's been to serve the community and to be with all of you.
Thanks so much again, Leanne. Andrew. Andrew, are you there? There you are.
I'm here, Mr. Mayor. I apologize for that. And I just have a quick admin question. It's more for Joanne. I know for me, I kind of joined this council at the last sort of municipal election cycle. And I was just wondering if we're kind of coming to an end of a cycle, if we need to sort of like reapply or express an interest again in terms of the members at large.
Okay, so I'll let Joanne answer that, but yes, a new term of council, there'll be a new application, but she can give you maybe more details. Joanne?
Yep, so that's correct. At the end of this term, we'll be starting to recruit for the new term. So everybody on this committee will need to reapply.
Okay, and that would probably take place in November, the applications?
Usually it's in November, yes.
Okay, just so everybody would be aware. Okay, Andrew?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Jason?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think I have anything new to add.
Okay, the one thing, Jason, I will bring up, because I spoke with Catherine Habermal from the region, and they're going to be doing more educational blitzes regarding garbage and different things. And one thing I asked her to include is that, because it's a complaint I get a lot, and I'm sure you do, is sometimes people get their garbage bags, put them on the side of the garage or side of the house, and they're not in a closed top container. And so you know what happens to that by garbage day. So I asked if they could do some education about making sure if you're putting your garbage outside that it's either in a sealed container area or in closed top garbage containers. And I think just for our bylaw, when they're going around, if they get clean yards complaints or that we could maybe have something or get their literature, that we could also make sure that the people to do it, combine education with the clean yards is basically,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yeah, that's great. And it is part of our work plan to engage with Catherine and her team with regards to that study I spoke about earlier, to look at more opportunities to improve in that area.
And let me state that that's not something that's just strictly in student areas. That's an area of concern across the city, not just in student areas. Okay, thank you. Paul.
Thank you. Well, let me echo what some of the other committee members have said on the positive outcomes that have been guided by this committee. So good work, and to all, but in particular to those stakeholders that have been doing the heavy lifting with the weekly meetings and taking the initiatives to make these improvements that we're hearing today. And one thing in particular that caught my attention on what we've been discussing today, is learning from the past so that we can improve the future. And one thing we've learned is that when the young adults have opportunities to enjoy social time together in venues like the Moose and Goose, that it kind of transfers the burden from neighborhoods to where it should be. So hopefully, we can explore opportunities in the downtown, maybe using the James White Arena for those types of events, and coming up for homecoming. And then probably another one that we've learned today is how planning for parking in developments is very important. And unfortunately, we can't change the past on what was done in Juneberry and in that area with parking and the number of residents. Council and the planning department can certainly take that into account on future developments to ensure that there's the adequate parking for the number of new residents coming in, so that we don't incur safety problems, noise problems, overcrowding in another neighborhood. And, by doing those types of things, we can continue to improve things with our community. That's all.
Thank you, Paul. And I think another thing that would help, and I think you'll see it help down the road, but now it takes time to build, but purpose-built student housing will also take some pressure off the residential areas as well.
For sure.
Brad.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've had a fair amount of time to talk this morning, so I won't go too much further, but I would just note a couple of things similar to Leanne's update around the COVID strategies for campus going forward. Ours is a little bit different. We are intending to maintain our vaccination requirement and masking requirements through at least the spring summer semester. Certainly that will be decisions that will be kind of continuously revisited as we progress towards the fall. So nothing to say on September at this point, but for those classes that we do operate in person, and certainly for campus operations through the spring and summer months, the vaccination requirement and masking requirement will remain in place. Last thing I'll highlight, at the onset of the pandemic, as we recognize that students will be engaging virtually from across the world, we designed a new student engagement framework called Engagement Communities, where all new students were clustered into kind of small units based on academic or personal interest, and kind of that was their mechanism to make connections as the student body connected virtually through the beginning of the pandemic. This past year, as we switched to more of a hybrid model, we continued with those engagement communities and saw good success. And so as we now move towards again, that needle being more towards in-person activities for September 2022, we are intending to continue with engagement communities. We are recasting those as off-campus student engagement communities. And there will be a kind of a complement to our residents, our on-campus residents framework, so that off-campus students, whether they're living in rental housing or commuting from home, particularly in their first year, will have a new way to connect with their peers, and certainly another connection point for the university to support them with their transition. And so, thinking about that, I know that a lot of the things that we talked about today are important kind of new learnings for students as they move off campus or as they live off campus. And so looking to make sure that the engagement communities are another way for us to connect students to that important information, but also to build community amongst themselves. So we'll share more on that certainly as it develops and at the August meeting minimum, but very much looking forward to the positive impacts that that new off-campus student engagement framework will have for our student experience.
Thank you, Brad. And we, Sean and Leanne are retiring. I just want to check and make sure you're not retiring as well. Is that?
Yeah, 2045. I'm here for
the okay, Councillor Sentence, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry about the construction behind you there, but yeah, I just wanted, Councillor Kenny couldn't make it today. He wanted me to let you know that he drive his sister to the airport, and just going along with what everybody said. I know everybody's doing well. The group is doing well, but I do get some complaints from residents about Friday and Saturday nights still, and the end of the year is coming. You know, they want to have one last blowout and everything. So your phrase about not taking your foot off the gas, I think we got to keep in mind. And there is garbage and parking issues still going on. We're doing the best we can. I understand that, but and even I've had some complaints about outdoor fires. So I think we still have to realize that it's the end of the year, and Friday and Saturdays are still Friday and Saturdays. So keep that in mind and keep a watch.
Yeah, we will. I noticed people are already moving out because I was, but that's a good point. Anybody that contacts you regarding fires, if there's outdoor fires, they call the fire department. Okay, that's a fire department issue. You just call Thorold Fire Emergency Services.
Okay.
And that's something regarding garbage, Jason, between us and Catherine. There's going to be a lot of garbage that's going to get left out as these students move out. So can we be put an extra, focus on that? I think is important. Thank you, Councillor Sent.
Thank you.
Kaylee's from Busu, so I just want to make sure everybody knows.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I don't have any updates.
No updates. Okay, so make sure you get us all prepared for the fall, though, right?
Yes, well underway. We are something exciting. We are getting a revamp to our patio at Isaac's that should be ready for the summer games. So we're excited for to have some activity on campus in August.
That's awesome. Great. Thank you. Okay, Stephanie.
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing I guess I really want to say is when we bought this house 3 years ago, we had intended on it being our forever home till our 6 kids moved out. And unfortunately, from all of the young adult activities, we're seeing multiple families already leave this neighborhood and many more are wanting, including us. It has been torture, to say the least. I'm not, it's not a problem having the students living here. That's generally not the issue. Yeah, there's parking issues and there's garbage issues. The parking issue really isn't their fault. Garbage issues, it sounds like people are trying to do stuff with it. But it sounds to me, what I'm observing as a resident who lives here is they're not being provided a space where they can party. Now, I think there's multiple issues with that. One issue that hasn't been brought up that I think could be under consideration is what I'm observing is when these students leave their home and come to their first year of living on campus, they're 18, so they're underage drinkers. So to them, they can't go to Isaac's, they can't go to Moose and Goose, and we can't be naive enough to think that these first year students who are finally leaving the nest for the first time, who are hanging out with other year students, that they're not drinking. It is happening. There are underage drinking happening. So what are our options with that, right? So even if there's locations for them to go like Isaac's and Moose and Goose, the underage first year residents can't go to those places. So they're not being provided a location. Now, when we were in the thick of all of this, I was trying to figure out who do I talk to, and I was talking to everybody. And so I had even contacted the Premier's office, and they told me that what I needed to do was separate what I thought was Ontario's responsibility, my city's, the school, everything like that, and break it all down. And when I'm observing other places outside of Ontario who have a younger drinking age, like 18, like Quebec, like Holland, like Germany, I'm observing that they're not having these same university residential party issues that we're having in Ontario. So I realize this is a broad outside of Niagara issue, and could the first year age not being 18 be an issue? I'm interested in hearing other people's perspectives, something just to think about. I had a client who came in from Germany, and I was telling him about our issues because he was like, oh, this is a lovely neighborhood. And I'm like, well, we're having to deal with blah, blah, blah. And he's like, what? He's like, I lived in a university area in Germany for years, and we've never, like, this would never, ever happen in our area. And he explained to me that the drinking age is actually 16 there for beer. And then for hard liquor, it's like 18 or something. So it's just I think there should be some research done to look at a broad Ontario perspective. If you're an adult at 18 and you can go to college and university, you can go to war for your country, you can vote, but you can't drink till you're 19. Is this causing some of these issues where they can't be provided a safe environment to do these things that they're doing anyways?
Thank you, Stephanie. That's an issue that would be dealt with that would be provincial. Is that provincial or federal? That's provincial. I'm not provincial yet. It's interesting.
I'm just really curious to see whatever, like if people can think about it. I mean, I'm obviously not experienced in all of this, but you know, at Thanksgiving when 85% of the Brock students were gone, we had very minimal issues in the area. So I'm like, okay, this is definitely a university issue of students because they were gone and we didn't have the issues. So I'm like, I'm all about providing. Let's provide a solution to the problem instead of just penalize after those who don't abide by what has to be done. So I was just really trying to break down, like, where does the root issue actually come from? And it seems like these university kids, young adults, need a place to party. So if they're provided the place and they don't go, why don't they go? Do they not go because they can't afford the admission to Moose and Goose? Do they not go because they're underage? Like, what are the issues for those who are not going to these places so that we can provide a solution to the problem, is my observation.
Thank you, Stephanie. Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, Stephanie, you're too young to probably remember this, but for the old guys like Terry and Gary, the provincial age limit was 18 back in the day, and we all turned out okay, and there weren't these types of neighborhood parties. And so what I think, Stephanie, is you're making a great point. I think there's a lot of rationale there, and keep in mind that there's a provincial election coming up. So I know you could take this up with some of the parties and see which ones might embrace this and see what could happen. So wish you the best.
Thank you, Paul. And Paul, was it 18? It's been so long, I couldn't remember. What was it?
Well, in my neighborhood, it was 16, but you know, we won't talk about that.
No, you're right. No, but you're right. Okay, Brad, you had your hand up. Go ahead. Did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I'm actually not going to comment at this point on the drinking age discussion. Again, I think that could we'll use some further research on that one. But just to make note that certainly last 2 Septembers, as far as what our normal welcome week activities would look like, and continuing through the early part of the fall semester. Again, not very typical, and as we are now planning towards orientation for September 2022, again, many more in-person activities. I mentioned the campus-wide planning framework that we use, and just to note that this starting point for orientation planning is that events are open to all students. So there are, again, very few that would be restricted to only those who are 19 plus. Again, not commenting at this point on kind of the alcohol dynamic, but certainly providing alternatives that are fun and that meet other orientation goals are kind of an important step for our group to take. And would imagine that this coming September, there'll be much more for students to do both on campus through the university and also in partnership with the various communities. So again, not in any way minimizing what we saw this past September, but would expect that in a more traditional year, there would be many more things for students to do, and wouldn't be dependent on the student being 19 in order to enjoy themselves. That's what we've seen over history, and our orientation activities are from the university perspective, very well attended and meet important goals as far as helping students transition. So again, those other dynamics we'll need to think further to, but I think that certainly the last couple of years, there's been kind of a vacuum, and very much looking forward to doing more in-person activities to provide those alternatives for students coming this coming fall.
Thank you, Brad. Okay, and I'll just end it off by saying that one thing we've noticed in the city, just so everyone's, I'm sure, aware, they've heard it or read about it, but the city of Thorold's the fastest growing municipality in Niagara, number 4 in Ontario, and number 8 in Canada. And by the numbers of our minor sports organizations, we are seeing a growth in registration at the younger levels, which means that a lot of young families are moving into the community. The situations that we work on are important because they not only improve neighborhoods, but also by working together with our community partners, we're able to work on resolving issues as they arise. And as Gary said earlier, we're constantly getting a turnover in students. So we have to keep making sure that we keep following what we've done as far as education, enforcement, all these issues, because we're always dealing with an ever-changing group as they come in. So this committee so important, and our subcommittees that work with all our community partners are extremely important. And this focus needs to continue. And I can't stress enough that the work we do has to continue with that same intensity, because that's how we're getting the results we're getting. And are we perfect? No. But have we improved things? Absolutely. So by doing that and working together, we can continue to make strides. So that's my 2 cents worth. Anyways, I want to thank everybody, and our next meeting is going to be October 22nd at 10 a.m. And in the meantime, the subcommittee will address issues as they arise, and we'll work with our community partners. Jason, go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, just an item of correction. You had said October 22nd. I believe it's August.
Sorry, you're absolutely right. August 22nd, 10 a.m. Thank you very much. And we'll be sending out the agenda as well as reminders from Joanne. Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn? I mover and a seconder, mover Gary and a seconder Paul, that this meeting is hereby adjourned at 11:08. And again, thank you everybody for your participation and the work you do in the community.
Have a good day, everyone.